alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm Tim Niederreiter, your host and an author of fantasy, and with me today is Terry Shepard, who's a bunch of different things. Terry, how are you?
I got to tell you guys, Tim and I have been talking for the last 30 minutes, and we just decided to turn the machine on so we could actually have a show. We've been having fun. It's great. Thank you so much for having me, my friend. This is awesome. I'm having a blast.
Well, you're really picking up my day too. But Terry, tell the people a little bit about yourself and stop pulling back the curtain so much. We can't reveal all the secrets of how much time goes into this podcast before the actual show.
Well, I'm coming up on the second year of being a writer of fiction. I started out in the nonfiction world, and I've done that for a long time. But we moved back to Florida to be with our kids and grandkids, and I needed something to do. I was kind of at loose ends. And actually, my psychiatrist said, stop worrying about feeding the world and solving everybody's problems. Have fun. What would you do if you could do anything? And I decided to try writing for a year, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love mostly with the community because guys like you are so much fun to talk to. So,
yeah, writers can be good at talking. It's fun.
And I didn't know what I was going to do. I decided I wanted to do something that would really touch the. I wanted a diverse cast. I wanted a cast in my story that really fit the realities of the world. So I based my hero, Jessica Ramirez, in the book Chasing Vega, on a real life Latina cop that I know very well, who had a lot of challenges going through the force. And what we did was we sat down and we took all the bad stuff that happened to her and I rewrote it with some happy ending stuff. So she actually got some revenge and retribution against the, chauvinists who were picking on her and stuff. And it turned out to be a fun story. I had her sidekicks LGBT. The most fascinating guy to me in the story is the fellow who's the medical examiner, because he's on the spectrum. He's on the autism spectrum.
Oh, like me.
And well, brothers, we are. I based on the son of my best friend, who has Asperger's and is brilliant on the inside. I mean, he's this amazing guy. And what I've learned in my research about autism is that behind the shield are these amazing, wonderful, loving, smart, fantastic people that just have a little trouble translating to what we expect they should be like in real life. And the reality is that they don't need to be. We all can be who we are, and that's part of the magic. So every scene that Joey Price has always gets love letters from people because they say, that guy is cool. He's really cool.
Well, that's great. I mean, I should say, yeah, I was also diagnosed with Asperger's. I was actually diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when I was a teenager. Actually, before I was a teenager. Right before I started writing books, as it turns out. But anyway, like a year before. Yeah, a year or two.
Yeah. So, and I think some of the best authors, if you really peel it back, they've got that stuff going on because their mind is just going a million miles an hour. They got all they want to say.
If I may offer, there's one other thing about that I think is really interesting, is that I was one of those guys who was it was hard for me to interact with people socially for a long time. I had an anxiety problem. Like when I was in school, I would have trouble passing in the hallway. I'd be scared of being in the hall with the other kids. And eventually I adapted back to it. But for a long time, they let me leave class early. That was in my special whatever setup. They let me leave each class like a few minutes early, so I didn't have to be in there during passing time. I could just go to my next class like 3 or 4 minutes before the previous one ended. And I'm just there, and it was just really nice. But but one of the things about that is, and now it's no problem for me because I mean, when you're a kid, everything's as it should be scarier to you. It's in some ways.
Yeah,
when I was.
Yeah, there's a lot of first time experiences.
Yeah, but then I also think I learned a lot about people because I had to get along. Like I had to learn a lot of stuff in a more analytical way than a neurotypical person might have to. So I mean, even though I don't feel like I understand my characters, it's because I'm just not. I'm never certain of how understanding what someone else is going to say or think.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of knowledge about it, I think.
See, that's the best part for pants people like us that don't plan or plot or anything like that. It's where the characters take us on these stories and they throw these twists and turns at us that we never expected. We have to figure out a way to get ourselves out of it. That to me is the joy of storytelling.
Absolutely.
You never know where it's going to go until the last page.
Yeah. And then you're there. because you're on the last page. You made it.
And hopefully you're not leaving people hanging so much that they get angry with you.
Oh boy, yeah.
Up, Has that ever happened to you where you finished a book and somebody said, "No, it's a cliffhanger. I hate it when they leave me in the cliffhanger."
I've actually never done that that I know of. I definitely ended one of my third dystopian cyberpunk book. Mm-hmm. I ended that on a cliffhanger, and I really need to write the sequel to that. But not many people have read that book because that series is very difficult to read in the first place. It's kind of a weird approach because it's first person, right? It's a first person series,
right?
But then it also has third person elements because people can share their memories with each other. So all the third person parts are when people are sharing their memories with the protagonist.
So that's published, right?
Yeah, all three. It's the Mangrove Suite is the first book. It's just a novella. Okay. And then there's the Clean Ways book 2, and then the Bright Image is the one with the cliffhanger. That's book 3.
Okay. I'm writing that down. I'm going to go grab those after the show is over because that sounds fascinating.
I really love that series. And people seem to like it too. And it's this. Anyway, this isn't about me, but I haven't mentioned this series in a while because it's what is the series called? It's called the Rain Protocol series, actually.
The Rain Protocol. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And it's basically, there's a lot of stuff about memories being erased. People have compared it to like Blade Runner meets fantasy novels and stuff because it's a very weird world. Anyway, all takes place in this megalopolis. That's all that's left of of North American civilization, basically on the East Coast. The rest of the country.
What I like about being a writer. We could create it from the start. I picked I knew I wanted to do stuff in Illinois someplace. I wanted a college town. I needed to create one. I wanted to be on the Mississippi River. So I just picked a point on the map, put the city there, populated it with people that were interesting, and then just started throwing hand grenades at my protagonists and watch what they did. And that's been great because people now are telling me they're looking on the map and they're saying, "So is Paloma? Where is that exactly? is Quincy Paloma in real life, or what is it? Is it a suburb of Chicago? No, there's a rivers there, so it can't be the suburb of Chicago." And that's the fun part is you can really do anything you want. It just has to. If you want to make a living, it's got to resonate, right? And that was when I was writing for Vega. I wanted to sell books. So I wanted to create a cast that I thought a wide variety of readers could identify with. And the best compliment I ever get about those books is from people who say, you were not expropriating my culture. But you are showing me that I can be a superhero too. And that just when I hear that. Because that's the goal. I mean, the goal of the goal of Chasing Vega wasn't even to sell books. It was to try and convince more young girls to want to get into law enforcement and to not be afraid to think that they could do it. And what I found in my life is that if you come at something with a broader purpose connected to it, that's when things really start to happen. I didn't expect to be a writer of children's stuff. And when my grandkids asked me about, Grandpa, what is this COVID-19 thing? So my son-in-law is a graphic artist. He's a very good one. He's a recovering lawyer, and he illustrated a book, and I wrote it the way that I learned to read that kid stuff, and that was in the voice of Dr. Seuss, Tetramic Pentameter.
Yeah.
So I wrote a book about masking and social distancing and vaccines called Juliet and the Mystery Bug. I made one of them. For the kids, and the neighbors wanted one. Then it was this, a classroom started. They said, "Will you come read it to us?" Everybody in the class wanted it. The parents wanted it. So now I'm getting ready to try and pitch the big drug companies to buy 250,000 of them because there are doctors out there that say this needs to be in every waiting room in the country. But that's
amazing. But that's the kind of serendipity. But that's what you get for putting yourself out there, though, right? There's these amazing rewards for filling a need, but also for just being bold enough to do it in the first place.
That's exactly the thing, and this is kind of what I like about your approach is that you're thinking about, and I'm not in your head, but when I write, I try to think about how can what I do make somebody's life a little bit better, even if it's just letting them escape from this COVID crap for 6 hours or so reading the book. Am I able to make a difference for one person? And that I can't wait to get up in the morning and start writing because that's the goal. If the goal was to make money like it was when I was a corporate guy, that gets very boring after a while.
Oh boy, yeah, maybe that's my problem lately. Because actually, I've been kind of trying to make more money, and that's been taking some of the fun out of it. Maybe I don't know, and it's counterproductive too. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the fear part is we got to make a living, but the trust part is that you have to trust that you can do when you're looking at that blank page in the morning that you can create something that's meaningful art that people will be interested in. You have to trust in that because money follows passion, and passion follows purpose. And if you can put those three things together, you'll have all of those three that you could ever want.
Wow, that's beautiful, dude. You're really making me think, and it's hard to have a conversation where you're just shooting the shit when you're thinking so much. but that's great. I love it. I hadn't thought about it in those terms. Taking a goal. It's kind of funny because when you think about a book, at least when I think about a book, you know how they say when you're writing a scene, the character needs a goal, right? Like there are a lot of those gurus come out and say that. You know, the character always needs a goal for each scene, for the whole book, for all this stuff, and I'm like, well, yeah, maybe my goal hasn't been in focus enough. You know, my own goal in real life. I've been thinking and that's a weird thought.
Well, I mean, the neat thing about characters too is that they really are the stars, right? So one of the things I discovered with Jessica is that there is a huge appetite for her in the comic world. I did a test. I hired a guy, an artist and a colorization dude and stuff. And I have friends I'm not a crazy comic nut, but I really like the Silver Age stuff. And I put it out there to see if there was anybody that was interested in it. And I have people that want to buy the original art because they like it. It's basically the first chapter of the book. The challenge I got, that's where the money problem comes in because it's about $150 a page.
Oh boy,
graphic novel.
And those are expensive. Yeah.
And if I could find the right, that's where you need to have the publisher behind you. I'm self-published. I prefer that. I want to control my art.
Yeah, me too.
If I was going to do a graphic novel, I would have to have some sort of partner that believed in my vision and wouldn't totally destroy it. You have to kind of let go a little bit.
Yeah, or you'd have to have some kind of royalty share with the artist, and colorist and all that stuff. Because I know people who do that, or you keep them on, retainer basically.
Yeah, and I have guys who want to do that. I mean, they love her. They want to get her out in that space. That it's the same thing.
I guess there's still expense. It's just a huge time commitment to create all that art.
Well, that's the ultimate dream. I mean, when you think about what Disney bought when they bought Marvel and they bought Lucasfilm, they didn't buy the movies. They bought the characters for the future. And all this multiverse stuff and all that they're just turning the creative guys loose to take these amazing characters, bring them back to life in the case of Wonder Woman and, Chris Pine. I mean, it doesn't matter. You could move time around. You can do anything, but you got these characters that people love. Like this thing that drives me nuts about social media, Tim, is that, I get more responses if I put up a cat picture than if I put up my book cover. That's what people like.
I mean, I like cats. What's wrong with cats? But it's still kind of a drag that any cat is going to be more popular than your book cover.
The first thing I did with Jessica was I gave her a Twitter handle 6 months before it was out. She has more fans than I do. She's had 2 marriage proposals, even though it's totally very clear that she's fictional. But her thing is, she's a cop, right? So she puts up all of these stupid things that people do. She has, all the little videos you see on Twitter. I go look for them. I have her post them. People love it. And one of the things that happened, which just blew my mind, was I put a thing up last Halloween. Maybe you've seen it. It's the one where the kid comes up on the doorstep and the guys have left the candy dish out there and it's empty. And he says, "This isn't right. There's going to be more kids coming." He starts taking candy out of his bag and puts it in there. And I had Jess say, "Isn't this amazing? I can't believe there are kids like that out there." And like 2 weeks later, it was in Newsweek magazine, and I get a call from the New York Times editorial board saying, "Do you realize that your video, that little video, has had over 23 million views?" And I had no idea that was.
Wow.
That's the character. That's what Jess would do. She would do those kind of things. So I think sometimes, as even in your own writing. Sometimes if you can wrap your arms around that person, get into their head a little bit and let them see where they want to go, they'll take you to the story. It's just fantastic to watch.
Absolutely. I guess I hadn't thought like you're doing these external things, this extra stuff on top of the book. And does that help you engage more with the characters, or is that something you do because you're engaged with the characters?
Well, and it engages the audience, which is the real key. I mean, one of the things that I did when I did the translation into Spanish with Vega is the woman that I hired to do it. I said, look, I don't know enough about the Latin culture. I mean, I've been in South America. I've toured down there with a rock band, but I was 17 when I did it. So I don't really know about that stuff. Take the main plot points, make it your own story. And she did. And she also is a literature professor. So what we're doing is that her class is reading the book this term. And at the end of the term, that what they're doing for me is they're casting it. They're casting the movie.
Wow. Okay.
We're going to decide who should play who. And then I'm going to take that to that actress and say, hey, listen, your fans are saying Jessica Alba or whoever it turns out to be, that you need to be Jessica Ramirez. I think you ought to buy this property. And it's kind of a crazy.
Hey, why not take a stab in the dark, you know?
But how much fun is that, right? I mean, have you ever been to, I'm sure you've sat around a table with buddies and tried to imagine who you think should be playing somebody. I mean, Tom Cruise is Jack Reacher.
Oh, come on. Yeah, no way. That's more of I cannot think of the guy. I would rather, maybe The Rock, but someone like that.
Yeah, that's
Dwayne Johnson, somebody
right? I mean,
some giant man needs to be Jack Reacher. Come on.
But there comes a point, right? I mean, there's a point, Tim, where, I mean, Lee Child has said this, he said, Tom came and wrote me a check for $1.5 million. I said, thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I don't blame him. I'd take that deal. Come on. even if I was Lee Child, I'd take that deal. Come on. Even if I had his audience, Well,
that's Michener. I'm all of Michener's stories. Right back to South Pacific, right? Tales of the South Pacific. The book is very different than the movie or the musical. Hawaii, the movie's different. Space, all of the ones that have been turned into films. And Michener himself said, look, once I sell it to them, they can do whatever they want with it.
That's the deal. Come on. Yeah.
One of the problems I think we have as writers is we get too attached. And attachment is the root of all suffering. So if you could let go of that a little bit and let somebody else have fun with it, as long as they're not bastardizing the essence of who your character is, let them take him to the dance. Like what?
Hey, yeah, come on. I mean, that's also interesting. You said that's the root of all suffering, because that's a very Buddhist approach, and if I'm not mistaken, I studied Buddhism in India 10 years ago now, but it was so cool to travel around, meet the Tibetan monks and stuff who are living in there. But the thing about that always resonates with me about that, though, is that you're connected to stuff, right? Yeah, but you have to try to distance yourself from your connection. Anyway, this is a side thing.
That's part of that, but that's a very important thing, because that's part of the plot point of every book. Mm-hmm. That's the flaw, right? I mean, your star has to have a flaw that they either overcome or they die. And part of the fun is watching how that flaw hits them across the face, right? Lessons are repeated until learned. And then when they finally figure out that that's what it is, what they do to get around it. Right. So that's part of what's in every single story that's ever been told. And the fun thing is how they become enlightened, how they get to India like you did. Yeah. And if they're smart enough to have a takeaway when it's all done. Sounds like you were. What was the biggest takeaway for you from being over there?
Oh, boy. What wasn't? I was 21. I turned 21 in India, actually. Completely dry county. In a city called Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama's temple's there, actually.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't even really. I mean, there were so many things that I learned there. It's hard to place exactly which one. But the one of the biggest ones, though, I guess, is that I was holding on to myself too tight back then.
Yep.
I was way tighter than I am now. Like, I mean, so much just like tension all the time. And I think I managed to relax a little bit, honestly. I can still be tightly wound if in the wrong situation, right? First thing in the morning, you better not say hi to me. I'm going to be grumpy before I get my coffee. That's why I get up before everyone else,
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
that's just normal. That's just being a grumpy. That's also comes from a life of night terrors, right? I had night terrors my entire life, basically. Yeah. I mean, ever since I was little. And I don't think I have them anymore, but I mean, whatever. Long story short, I got a CPAP machine, and it helped a lot with that. It felt like I wasn't drowning anymore every time I went to sleep.
Yeah, my wife sleeps with a CPAP, and it's been wonderful because it's quiet and she's peaceful. She wakes up with so much the oxygen stuff. We're not getting enough of it at night.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, actually, speaking of India, they're having trouble with oxygen right now. It's awful in their hospitals. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I saw that story. I couldn't believe it.
That is so sad. I can't actually. Let's steer away from that, because by the time this episode comes out, I mean, I just don't want to. I just can't think about it and have a good time. It's too serious. It's too dark.
Yeah. You know what? You know what the cool thing is? The hopeful thing for me though is that if you take the long view, right? Take the long view of everything through the hundreds of years of history and stuff, things work out. Yeah, we have good times, we have bad times, but this big river of life just keeps going. We're just nothing but raindrops in it. And all our goal should really be to figure out what it is that makes us happy, and how we can make our small droplet contribution and not worry. The big problem, and I think a lot of this falls into a lot of these stories we talk about. Certainly it's part of Jessica's challenge, is that her dad would not let her be a swimmer. She wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. And he said no, she was good enough to do it. So she became a cop to piss him off because she was not allowed to be who she wanted to be. And I think that's a common problem that a lot of us have. I mean, I know that
some of my favorite characters, that one of the characters I created who's a favorite of mine, but I think the people who read the book would probably hate him because he is kind of an antagonist. But he's like an agent. He's like a federal agent in one of my sci-fi series. It's not Earth based. So he's basically the equivalent of an FBI guy though, or a CIA agent. But he's he's kind of a portly dude. He's heavy like me, but he wanted to be in the military, and he was never fit enough to do it back in the day. Back when he was young enough to be in the military, he wasn't fit enough, so he became an FBI agent, basically, an imperial agent instead. And then because he wanted to shoot people, so he's not a very nice guy. But I just liked how I put that together, like, okay. I mean, I like how he really did come together. He should come back.
Yeah, conscience. He needs to realize that he needs to understand why he felt that way, why he felt.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that'd be the thing. If you realize, it's like, I really just wanted to hurt people, and then he repented, he'd be a pretty likable character all of a sudden.
Well, that's the Darth Vader story, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who throws the bad guy into the fire? It's the bad guy did it. So.
It's true. Getting at the cost of his own life. It's one of those things. And basically, and he doesn't do it to save the Rebel Alliance or to stop. It's actually goes to this thing I was thinking earlier when you said, you're just trying to help one other person, and that's all he's doing at the end of that movie. He's just trying to save his son, one other person. And
I think you start there, right? I mean, every great, when you think about the Dalai Lama or you think about Gandhi or any of these amazing leaders who built this movement, if you drill down, they're just thinking about the one person. Thing I love about the Dalai Lama is he says, look, you got to find your own way. This, Buddhism is my way, but it might not be yours. Figure out what it is, and just go be happy with it. That's the goal. Don't stop all this worrying. And I think that's the challenge we're feeling now because there's so much uncertainty with COVID and everything. We don't know. We finally got a disease that we just can't figure out completely, and that mutates. It's like right out of one of your novels, right? What's going to happen? Now that's a challenge, Tim, for me right now, is that it's very hard for me to write thrillers because
I can imagine.
It's hard for me to think of a world shattering thing that a bad guy could do that's worse than what we're living right now.
You can't top it. It's like political thrillers. You couldn't top the campaign in 2016 or the 2020 even. You can't top these things because it's insane. It's like the world got so weird all of a sudden. It's like, but it always was this weird. Is the real secret. I think it's like there's so much. It was always this crazy. It's just like people are pulling back the veil, like you did at the start of the show, and they're showing people what actually is going on behind the scenes. And that's what COVID is like. The world was always this rough. Some areas there's always things were always this bad.
That is so true, Tim. That is so true. It's always been like this. It's the stage on which we dance. And we have to figure out how to dance on that stage in a way that makes a difference. So people will want to be in the audience and join us. I mean, that's the best part for me when I hear from somebody who said, I was inspired to write after reading Vega because I'm Latino and I think I've got a story to tell. Oh my gosh. I mean, I could retire on that.
Yeah. You reproduced a writer. Come on.
You're biologically, right?
Yeah. You made somebody else want to write. That's, now if you could be done if you wanted to be, you got it. You did it. You did the thing.
Well, that's the thing. It's like Tostitos. You always want to make more.
That's true.
There's no commercial about that. Don't worry about it. We'll make more.
That's the nice thing about writing though, because you always make something different, you know. And you've written all sorts of different stuff, and like obviously, as you can tell from what I've been referring to with my own books, I've written all sorts of stuff. But obviously, most of my stuff falls into fantasy and science fiction. Actually, all of it does. But that's just my taste, right? And that's fine. Okay. That's great. I'm not trying. I'm never speak little of what I write. I love what I write. It's just, the trickier thing I have is that the genre in general kind of it's like a chain around my neck. I hate it.
Why do you feel that? I mean, that's interesting.
I don't like having to conform to make my books fit into a particular genre. If I clarify, I really like to combine science and technology, science and magic. I like to mix and match. But it's hard to market that stuff. But that's what I got to stop worrying about, because I just got to write my books.
There's an audience out there for that, Tim. I mean, that's the thing that I've found. I mean, is that they find you. The challenge now, because so many of us are self-publishing, is that the market's flooded and it's very hard to get. It's hard to get anybody's attention right now. So your relationships begin in these one-on-one places. So you're richly blessed because you've got this platform and this built-in audience out there that digs you already and listens to your podcasts every week. And that's where you start. You start by engaging with them, and you find out more about them, what their interests are, and figure out where there's the intersection, and then start telling a story. I mean, I can't conform to a, Vegas is a thriller, but it's also a techno thriller. I mean, it's a passion play. It's a transformational story. It's a zillion different things. But what I hope is that when I'm at my best as a writer, that what I'm doing is I'm making people think, that I'm making them look at their paradigms and say, wait a minute. And I've lived this all my life. It's like you with your in when you got to high school and stuff and started to have enough experience in life that you said, hey, maybe this paradigm of what I think I am or what I'm supposed to be isn't going to fit. Maybe I can go out and explore something else. I think it's the same way in writing. Let's create a new genre. Let's create a Tim genre.
That's really what I want to do. I mean, I had Cameron Hurley as a guest on this podcast a while ago. She's traditionally published, but she had this whole thing about how she was like, I don't want people to want a sci-fi book or a fantasy book this is what she said, right? Something like this. She says, I want them to want a Cameron Hurley book. Yeah, and that's what you want. Yeah. That's what the ideal situation is for that author, for any author who wants to write weird stuff that's fun and goes outside the boundaries a bit. I mean, for me, that's what I enjoy to read.
But that's how it works in Hollywood. They say, so what is it? Is it Indiana Jones meets, Star Wars, or what is it? They want to. And how cool would it be if it was Tim meets Scott, or Tim meets Terry, or Tim meets Phil,
or Tim versus Terry, The Reckoning?
Yeah, I love that.
Hey, that'd be a good one. Maybe I need to do that. Because honestly, I got started actually. Why I actually started writing my first book, because I'd read the Da Vinci Code and it drove me crazy. And I did not enjoy the Da Vinci Code. I'm not a Dan Brown fan, but I am a Dan Brown student. Let me put it that way. Yes. I read a bunch of his books. I don't really like his books. They're not in my genre either. But I'm like, I just want to do something to. I mean, this guy did it. I can do a book too. It's that kind of thing. Like he wrote his books. I can write mine.
Yeah, and he would love to hear that. I have a relationship with the guy. He's one of the four. When I started writing, I picked out my four favorite authors, and I wrote them each a private email, and I said, I'm going to be 65. I want to write. I don't want to stalk you. I'm not asking for a mentor. I'm just asking for one piece of advice. What would you say that I should be thinking about if I'm in this business? And to a person, they all said, send me a chapter. Or in Dan Brown's case, he says, I'm going to be in masterclass. Watch my show, and then I'll give you some feedback on what you're doing. That's how it works. We're all the same. We all want to help one another at our best selves when we can. I think the problem is when you get some fame like Patterson and those guys do, Ivanovich, all those people, is that they're inundated. They don't have time to do it anymore.
Yeah, they might be able to help a few people, but that's the thing. They can't help everybody, and they got so many people on their doors. Yeah.
Well, that's why you're here, buddy. You're making it happen. Think about all these people that you've introduced to your audience, the wide array of people that are out there. I mean,
there's quite a few. I mean, after 200 some episodes, it adds up. This is episode 216 of the podcast. I don't say the number at the beginning because I always forget it. But
see, we ought to reverse roles on your show one of these times, and let me take you back through those 216 episodes and talk about what you've learned from each one of those.
That'd be so cool, dude. That'd be awesome.
We'll do it. That'd be fun.
Actually, that's just stay tuned for Terry versus Tim: The Reckoning, because we are going to be back later. And this episode's just about over, but yeah, it's been great, Terry. Thanks for being on the show, and I can't wait to have you back. This was incredible.
My pleasure. It's great to meet you. I think we're kindred spirits, my friend. Best of luck to you, and thanks a million.
Yes, excellent. Oh, and tell people where they can find your stuff, though.
Oh yeah, okay. TerryShepard.com. That's the best place. I'm on everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, all those places. But if you start at TerryShepard.com, it'll take you where you need to go.
Wonderful. And as for this podcast, you can find us at mentalcellularpublications.com or timniederreiter.com. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm at tniederreiter. And you can find my books on Amazon.com, or you can find the print-on-demand books wherever you can find print-on-demand books, because those are wide. They're everywhere. And, yeah. Also, give us a like on Facebook. Tim Niederreiter. Tim Niederreiter on Facebook. And I don't plug that nearly enough, because every episode gets plugged there when I release it. So definitely check that out if you want to be updated and you don't want to subscribe to a feed. And I used to listen to podcasts by web player all the time, so I understand if that's what you want to do. And now let me see, what's the last place? The last thing you should know? No, I think that's everything. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take it easy, stay safe, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.